This is a reading from the notebooks by Maria Valtorta, 1945 to 1950. March 13th, 1946, footnote 186. About one page is omitted here, containing the beginning of the episode Jesus with Peter and Bartholomew at Bether, from the third year of the public life. Jesus' perfect tact, even with children, brings him to act like this. Footnote 187. This loving observation by the writer is included in the description of Jesus' affectionate encounter with some children in a rose garden, the episode referred to the previous note. So as not to mortify or disappoint them, he possesses the art and the charm to improve them and cause himself to be loved with what are in appearance trifles, but are in reality the perfection of love adapted to the littleness of the child. As with me, oh, he really always treated me as a child, to improve my wretchedness, to bring himself to be loved. Afterwards, when I loved him with my whole self, he brought pressure to bear and treated me as an adult, deaf to my entreaties. But don't you see that I'm good for nothing? He smiled and forced me to do the work of adults. Oh, only when poor Maria is really completely afflicted does he once again become the Jesus of children for my poor soul, which is so incapable, and content himself with my beetles, pebbles, and little flowers, what I am able to give him, and shows me that he finds them beautiful, and loves me because I am the non-entity that entrusts and loses itself in the all. My dear Jesus, loved to the point of madness, loved with my whole self, yes, I can proclaim it. On the eve of my 49th year, on examining myself carefully, on the eve of the human sentence concerning my work as a spokesman, on scrutinizing my spirit and my whole self diligently to decipher the true words that are in me, I can say that I now love. I understand that I love my God with my whole self. I have devoted 48 years to arriving at this total love, so total that I have no thought of personal fear in anticipation of a condemnation, but only agony over the repercussions it might have on the souls that I have led to God, that I am convinced have been redeemed by Jesus living in me, and that would separate from the church the connecting link between humanity and God. Some will say, aren't you ashamed to have wanted this so much? No, not at all. I was so weak, so much of a nothing, that I have so desired all this time. And besides, I am convinced that I have desired this for exactly the time Jesus has willed, not a minute more, not a minute less. For I can say this, since I began to understand what God is, I have never refused God anything. Since at age 4 I felt him to be so omnipresent that I even believed he was in the wood of the back of the chair I sat on, and I apologized for turning my back to him and leaning on him, since also at age 4, even in sleep, I considered that our sins had wounded and killed him, and I would get to my feet on the bed in prayer, in my pajamas, without looking at any religious painting, but turning directly to my beloved, slain for our sake, begging, not me, have me die, but don't tell me that I have wounded you, and on and on. Oh, my love, you know my moments of fervor. Not one is unknown to you. You know that a mere flash of a proposal by you at once became acceptance for your Maria, even if you proposed that I give you my love as a fiancé. Indeed, precisely then, during the Christmas of 1921, my love for you was confirmed, the love of relatives, life, health, prosperity, and increasingly becoming a nobody in social life, a wreck that the world observed with pity or mockery, a woman who cannot take a glass of water if she is thirsty, and has no one to offer it to her, a woman nailed down, like you, and as I so desire to be, and as I would like to go back to being at once, if you were to heal me. Everything. The non-entity has given her all, as a creature. Well then, even now that I can be judged negatively and interdicted and stricken, what shall I say to you? Leave me yourself, your grace. All the rest is nothing. I ask only that you not take your love and not allow the ones I have given you to fall back into darkness. But where have I gone? O my son, while you wander among the rosebeds, where my heart, which has striven to love you, takes me, and it beats and sets the blood in my veins aflame, and people will say, she's got fever and palpitation of the heart. No, the fact is that this morning you are pouring yourself into me as with the power of a divine hurricane of love, and I annul myself in you, penetrating me, and I think no longer as a creature, but experience what must be the life of the seraphim, and I burn, and am delirious, and love you, love you, love you. Have mercy in your love. Have mercy if you want me to go on living to serve you, O divine eternal love, O love most sweet, O love of the heavens and creation. God, 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 but no, no mercy. On the contrary, even more, until death on the pyre of love. Let us fuse, let us love each other, so that we may be in the Father, as you said when praying for us. May those who love me be where we are. May they be one. One. This is one of the phrases in the gospel which have always made me plunge into an abyss of loving worship. What did you request for us, O my divine Master and Redeemer? What did you ask for, O my divine madman of love? That we may be one with you, the Father and the Holy Spirit, since whoever is in one is in the three. O inseparable and yet free Trinity of the triune God, blessed, blessed, blessed with every beat of my heart and breath. Footnote 189. We pass over 4.5 handwritten pages containing the conclusion of the episode mentioned for March 13th, 1946. My Jesus divinely comforts his Violet. I possess the divine presence almost continuously, and this morning at Holy Communion he moved and went to Father's side, and afterwards, as I ardently prayed, and I had even knelt down the way I am able to, that is, completely bent over, leaning, falling back on my heels and on the pillows, feeling mortal pains from the posture adopted, saying, "You see, Lord, you see, my fear is that Giuseppe, Paola, Marta, and others will become disgusted with the church, and in addition, if I were to fall into dejection, into doubt concerning the truthfulness of the voice, I could be lost, lose you." He replies to me, "Victim souls are never lost." I am living with this pearl in my heart, and waves of peace and joy emerge from the divine pearl, envelop me entirely and fill me. Later on, the mail brought me from a Carmel, a relic of St. Teresa of Avila, and a photograph of Pope Pius X, the Pope who spoke to me and encouraged me to continue on my way, which was pleasing to the Lord. Footnote 190. See the entry for February the 8th, 1946. I was moved by both items. St. Teresa of Avila can understand me, and the Holy Pope can protect me down there in Rome. I put the relic under my pillow and the Pope on my bed table for protection. Footnote 191. The writer adds that this text was also included in the notebook containing spiritual instructions. 11 pages are here passed over, dated March 16th, 1946, containing the episode Farewell to Bether, from the third year of the public life. March 14th, 1946. My birthday, so full of apprehension over Paola and Mother Teresa and myself. I was comforted by the most holy presence, and then in the evening by the appearance of St. Therese, who had also come on the evening of the 12th, with her rose, no longer in her right hand, but in her left, and with her right hand she indicated that I should take heart and be joyful, and smiled even more cheerfully, I would say, than in the February apparition. Footnote 192. February 2nd, 1946. How she smiled. Then, later at night, after 10:30 p.m., while Marta slept, and I, unable to find rest, read a back issue of Civiltà Cattolica, given to me yesterday by Berardi. Footnote 193. Franco Berardi from Mantova, who rented a room from her parents for some months. After the two of us had discussed the church, which he thought should be demolished for the reasons he encountered in the Civiltà Cattolica article, I understood nothing because my mind was tired, and far from the lines my eyes were skimming over. There appeared the child Jesus of Lisieux, in the cloister, as seen in January. Footnote 194. January 2nd and 3rd of 1946. But he was not holding the cold, prickly globe in his beautiful hands, as during this past winter, but a golden rose between his fingers, in all respects like the one held by his Therese, and he laughed very happily, beckoning to me with the rose and his hand to go over there to him. And it was not night, as in the winter vision, but day, a mildly warm spring day. The cloister courtyard was joyful with sunlight, and the sunbeams extended under the arcades, over the tiles, and even beneath the little platform where Jesus was. Everything was peaceful and festive. Oh, if only he had wanted to tell me that the night was over for me, and light had been shed, and grace had been granted. How peaceful the cloister was, peaceful and serene. I would have liked to be there and just be the little sister of Therese of Lisieux. March 15th, 1946. I received a letter from the Carmel of, footnote 195. Camaiore is barely legible at this point. A careful attempt was made to erase it. The mother prioress was the Scaled Carmelite sister Teresa Maria of St. Joseph, previously mentioned. The mother prioress, certainly illuminated by God, had written to me in pencil, since she was ill, to tell me that on February 21st she had written to Mother Genovefa, Selina, in Lisieux, asking for prayers for me. Footnote 196. In the small space remaining on this line, the following annotation has been added. Note of March 23, 1946. They replied from Lisieux that they would offer a triduum for me, March 24th and 25th and 26th. Oh, how can the invitations and smiles of the little child of Lisieux not be identified with this news, the sister of my little saint, praying for me? I too pray, and I pray, asking not only for a yes, more for others than for myself, but also asking that God will grant two graces. One is not to fall into discouragement or doubt, repudiating Jesus by saying, maybe it was not him. If I were to hear a no, Satan would work with such discouragement his victory, his promised revenge at the end of my life, to make me afraid of death and judgment. Footnote 197. See March 19th, 1945. Lord, have mercy on me. I ask for the second form of aid in the event there is a yes, so that, the easier it might get for self-complacency to arise, Jesus will help me to keep myself lowly, ever more lowly and humble. May I never commit the sin of pride, which so displeases you, O my Lord. I would prefer to be humiliated rather than exalted. If exaltation were to turn me into a proud person, not pleasing to you, have mercy, Lord. And I also promise special prayers for Dora as soon as I am calm. That is, that if it is God, he will manifest himself, and if it is Satan, that unhappy woman will be liberated, and the truth may shine forth. It is better for her to be a good and simple Catholic, with no extraordinary signs, than to be a false instrument, and that may she be freed from the enemy, for it must be horrible to have him like that, as a master, at least in certain hours. March 17th, 1946. In Nomine Domini, peace be with you. He came at 9 p.m. with the news, not stupefying, for Jesus had been preparing me for it for nearly a year, Pentecost 1945, and more intensely. I shall certainly suffer very, very much. I know Satan's promise for the final agony, February 1945. Father must have understood. Now, one's heart plunges to the ground on approaching many priests. In the sea of bitterness, though, there are two very sweet currents, and they penetrate me while the other very bitter waves bite and torture. Firstly, Jesus has heard my prayer in these days. Have me censured rather than allow me to get proud. I am not, at least so I believe, censured, but I am not glorified, and therefore I certainly do not fall into pride. Secondly, in the current trial, aimed at bringing torment to the spokesman, I see Satan as envious of the work, which truly comes from God. I am confirmed as being in the truth because persecution is a sign never lacking for the souls beloved to God, the most good. Now, moreover, I pray to the Holy Spirit to receive honey, as on the 12th of this month. And instead of Ezekiel, Isaiah sweetens me with those words coming from God, found in chapter 54, verses 2 and 4. As far as you will not be ashamed, verses 7, 8, 11, 12, 14, and 15, as far as an instrument for his work, and verse 17, as far as the words shall be without effect. Here is the reconstructed passage. See the attached page, footnote 198. Enlarge the space for your tent. Spread out your tent clothes unsparingly. Lengthen your ropes and make firm your stakes. Fear not, you shall not be put to shame. You need not blush, for you shall not be disgraced. The shame of your youth you shall forget. For a brief moment I abandoned you, but with great tenderness I will take you back. In an outburst of wrath, for a moment I hid my face from you, but with enduring love I take pity on you. O afflicted one, storm-battered and unconsoled, I lay your pavements in carnelians, and your foundations in sapphires. I will make your battlements of rubies, your gates of carbuncles, and all your walls of precious stones. In justice shall you be established, far from the fear of oppression, where destruction cannot come near you. Lo, the foreigner who was not with me shall come. The one who was once a stranger shall join with you. Lo, I have created the craftsman who blows on the burning coals and forges a tool for his work. No weapon fashioned against you shall prevail. Isaiah 54. Isn't the Lord kind? They can bring about my death, but I am at peace. From today on, as the angel told me to, I shall start pronouncing mentally the phrase in nomine Domini before writing in notebooks or preparing a letter, and for every one of my actions. He told me to on Sunday, March 3rd, after explaining Holy Mass. When this new mutilation takes place, and you are no longer defended except by God, for Father, too, will no longer be able to help and protect you, you shall pronounce the words in nomine Domini as an invocation before writing letters or in notebooks or effecting any other writing or action, always introducing the sentence taught by Jesus Most Holy. Peace be with you. Footnote 199. See November 3rd, 1944. In the notebooks, 1944. We here omit almost 6 handwritten pages dated March the 17th, 1946, containing Azariah's commentary on the Mass for the second Sunday in Lent. March 18th, 1946. Because of a silly accident, I had to tear out and recopy the unpresentable page, ruined as it is. Never mind. I corrected the first section on the directions. On page 1, dated October the 5th, 1945, I found a text affirming that I no longer enjoyed the visions after I had seen them, whereas in the previous months I had also enjoyed them after the act of seeing had been completed and concluded. Indeed, then, in September and October, it was exactly like that, a case of diabolical oppression, to disturb me and make me discouraged. An attempt by Satan to produce agitation and depression, but it stopped after extreme unction, and it never came back. Many things stopped after extreme unction. I was convinced even before I recommended that this great help providing such peace not be taken away from the dying, but I said so only because I had faith. Now I say so from experience, and I will say so to those dealing with the seriously ill, and I will leave word of this. Fortify spirits in the struggles of agony with this sacrament. Bring peace, bring liberation, far away from the enemy. And now, the defeated one, using men as his accomplices, is trying to take me back to the doubt and discouragement of the summer months. Well then, I entrust myself to God. If he does not want my desolation, and I, too, will fight to reject the mists of Satan brought forth to hide light and truth from me, light and truth will not fade from my horizon, if God does not so will, and I hope in him alone. The men who do not hear God and do not respect God in his manifestations will be left defeated, together with their tempter, and the day will finally come when they can no longer harm me. I persistently recall all of Jesus' dictations, the far-sighted and providential dictations by Jesus from July 1943 on concerning the need for silence regarding the spokesman, and the dictated pages to bring peace to the spokesman himself as long as he lived, so that he would not be disturbed and his work would not be exposed to snares. Only when these eyes and these hands, which now see and write, are in the tomb, shall you make his mission known. This is more or less what he said. Footnote 200. Similar words are found in the entry for August 23, 1943, in the Notebooks, 1943. But because of a set of circumstances, this order was not observed. I alone have always observed it, and I always will. The consequences of not having observed Jesus' counsels to the letter are now being paid. I, who am not at all to blame, also pay. May God make up for human mischief. My angel tells you, Father, that the Holy Mass for the voices are to be read and known only by my superiors, and should not be disseminated for any reason to anyone until after my death. Accordingly, except for you and of course the Father General, the Procurator General, and the other priest who teaches a course on the sacraments, if you agree. Footnote 201. This is probably the first mention of Father Corrado M. Berti of the Servants of Mary, professor of sacramental theology, who would later play a considerable role in attending to Maria Valtorta's writings. He died in 1980. No one else should be familiar with them in Rome or elsewhere. March 19th, 1946. Another nighttime agony. All right, whatever God wants, but I can't help thinking that they could let me die in peace, since I am so close to dying, out of mercy. You know what your presence in my agonies meant? I frankly told you about my idea of Father Mariano. I here remind you to provide, if possible, for my having a priest nearby, who by virtue of spiritual and chronological age will be better prepared and capable of generating confidence as regards being able to act with holiness and seriousness and correctness in relation to me. You will always be my director and the helper of the spokesman, because that is proper and willed by Jesus. Footnote 202. In the margin, she later added in minute handwriting, instead, from July the 4th, 1946 on, Jesus provided a different solution. My note of December the 9th, 1947, the new spiritual director was Father Luigi Lopalco, a Passionist. But the sick spokesman is here and should be helped, and helped by someone offering reliable guarantees. Remember this. And I am also tormented by the thought of Giuseppe, who I should write to, and I would like to be sincere, but in such a way as not to wound that soul recently born to grace and esteem in the church and the clergy. My Azariah helps me. You heard that I wrote, Father Migliorini has been called to the General House in Rome because of his competence as a missionary. It is true, with the removal of what might do harm to a neo-Catholic, suitable indeed for making him venerate the upper hierarchies even more, since the goodness of the Father General provided the occasion for robing the decision in a positive light. Let us use what they give us and bless God for it, who allows us to tell the truth without wounding those just born to God. And I am reflecting on something else. This October, when I was writing the departure of John of Endor and Syntyche, I said to myself, and what does this have to do with the gospel? Footnote 203, an episode in the work on the gospel. And what does this have to do with the gospel? It struck me as a sweetly sad episode, able to shed light on Christian life in Antioch, and on Jesus' goodness and Syntyche's fortitude. Now I understand it was given for us, for me and you, being separated by human wickedness and being occasioned being occasioned undeserved pain. And if you suffer what John the disciple experienced, and that is healthy, I, in my illness, must necessarily be Syntyche and say fiat with a smile on my lips, letting my heart finish squeezing out its last drops of blood in affliction, and do so to save him depart, reassured about poor sick Maria, and do so to support Martha, who is completely unable to pluck up courage, and, if I did not keep watch, would go off the path, even those one should not accompany, mixing up the obtuse men who do evil, and who must be forgiven out of love for Jesus, with God, who never harms his children, and do so that nothing will leak out through our fault, and there will be no gossip and useless or wicked remarks. Well then, I will also be Syntyche, hoping that Jesus will make the promise he made to John of Endor before separating from him come true, to assist him in agony and death, which shall be peaceful, and give him his presence in the month of separation to support him. I impose this pain, too, on myself, with a kiss, and drink this chalice as well, and I go forward. In January, Jesus had me give the Carmelites the spiritual intentions for the first 4 months of 1946. January, to be the Lambs of God with St. Agnes. February, to be the Contemplators of Our Lady of Lourdes with Bernadette. March, to be in St. Joseph's workshop to learn to build oneself the cross. April, to be on Calvary at the foot of the cross with St. John. Well then, I am intent on constructing myself the cross under the teaching of St. Joseph. I am also recalling that Jesus wanted me to copy my offerings and prayers, something I had never before been told to do. Footnote 204, on February the 10th, 1946. It struck me as so useless for others, and painful for me. I would say, anyway, when I'm dead, Father will carry off everything and examine it. But Jesus knew and wanted you to depart with this most intimate page without waiting until after my death to know about them. I'm considering so many matters. I mean, how many things show me my heavenly protectors? It is as if I were looking through a very sharp microscope or telescope, or whatever. I see what escapes the human eye, and in a light which illuminates everything.